The Disgraced Princess and the Human Outcast. Princess Viria sat alone in the cold, silent garden. Around her, the royal palace sparkled with wealth and beauty, but her heart felt empty. Just this morning, the doctors from the Imperial Health Council made an announcement in front of the entire court. "She is infertile," the alien doctor had said loudly. "She cannot carry children. She cannot continue the royal bloodline." There had been gasps, then silence, then laughter. Some nobles whispered, others smirked openly. Her mother, the High Queen, looked away. Her father, the king, didn't even try to hide his disappointment. "Take her to the side palace," the queen said coldly. "She will live out her days in peace. She is no longer needed at court." They took away her crown. Her royal nameplate was removed. Her younger sister, who always invited her, smirked as Viria was escorted out like a servant. She was now a forgotten princess. Meanwhile, far from the palace, a human spaceship landed on the edge of the royal city. From it stepped Jackson, a strong man with short dark hair and a scar under his left eye. He wore simple armor and carried no weapons. Many alien guards watched him with suspicion. Humans were not liked in this part of the galaxy. They said humans were too emotional, too bold, too poor. Jackson didn't care. He walked through the city streets until he reached the royal court. Everyone stopped talking when he entered the hall. "What is the meaning of this?" asked Lord Coro, a senior noble. "A human here, uninvited." Jackson stepped forward and spoke clearly. "I'm here to speak to the royal family," he said. "I wish to take Princess Viria's hand." Gasps echoed around the room. Nobles looked at each other in shock. The queen laughed out loud. "You want her," she said. "The broken one. The princess who can't give children." Jackson nodded. "Yes." More laughter followed. "She is nothing now," Lord Coro sneered. "You might as well marry a shadow." But Jackson's face stayed calm. Even a shadow can be more than light, if you look with the right eyes. The court grew quiet. The queen waved her hand. "Let him see her. It will be her final embarrassment." The guards took Jackson to the side palace. It was far smaller and colder than the main one, but still clean. In the garden, Viria was sitting under a silver tree, reading an old book. She looked up as Jackson approached. He bowed respectfully. "Princess." "Don't call me that," she said, her voice tired. "I'm no longer one." Jackson sat across from her. "I still see one." They sat in silence for a moment. "Why are you here?" she asked. "I came to take you with me," he said. "As my partner." Viria looked at him with disbelief. "Do you know what they say about me?" "Yes," Jackson said. "But I don't care." "Why?" Her voice cracked a little. Jackson looked her in the eyes. "Because I don't need a queen to rule a kingdom. I need someone who understands pain and strength. I need someone real." Tears formed in Viria's eyes, but she blinked them away. She had not cried in years. "If you come with me," Jackson said, "we leave tonight. We go far from here. No more palaces, no more cruel words." Viria stood slowly. She looked around at the garden, at the palace she once loved. Then she stepped forward and held out her hand. "Take me away from this place," she whispered. Jackson took her hand gently. But just before they left, Viria leaned close to his ear and whispered something strange. "They lied about me." Jackson froze. "What do you mean?" She just smiled. "I'll tell you when we're safe." And with that, the human and the disgraced princess disappeared into the night. But high above, hidden eyes were watching. And back at the palace, the royal family was already preparing something dangerous. Because in their minds, a human taking a royal alien was not love. It was war. A deal written in stars. The royal palace looked peaceful from space. Its towers shone like blue diamonds under the twin suns. But beneath that beauty, something dark had begun to move. In a hidden chamber deep inside the palace, Queen Loravira stood in front of a glowing table. Holograms floated in the air, maps, names, and images of a certain human man. Jackson. Find him, she said in a cold voice. Find her. Bring her back. Alive, Your Majesty, the commander asked. The queen didn't answer. She just turned and walked away. Far away, beyond the city, Jackson and Viria had taken an old cargo ship. It was rusty, small, and barely held together. But it flew. Viria sat beside him in the co-pilot's seat. Her fingers touched the glass, watching the stars pass by. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her. No one was judging her. Why did you do it? She asked softly. Why did you really ask for me? Jackson didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened a small metal box beside his seat. Inside was a folded paper, old and worn. He handed it to her. Viria opened it and read slowly. It was a contract, a very old one, signed by someone named Elder Orin of the Second Moons. It was a deal. What is this? She asked. Jackson leaned back. When I was a child soldier, I saved an old alien's life. He was close to death, left behind by his people. He told me a secret, something about a child of the royal family who would change the galaxy, but only if she left everything behind. Me? Viria asked. Jackson nodded. I didn't believe him at first. I thought it was a story. But when the news came out that the princess was declared infertile, I knew it was time. Viria's heart beat faster. You mean, you planned this? No, Jackson said quickly. I didn't plan to love you. I planned to find you. But everything else, it just happened. They were quiet again. The ship beeped. We're entering a dark zone, Jackson said. No signals, no tracking. Perfect for hiding. As they flew into the dark zone, the stars outside seemed to disappear. It was like flying into ink. Viria shivered. What is this place? Jackson smiled. An old place, forgotten, but safe. They landed on a small rocky moon with black sand and glowing trees. The air was thin, but breathable. Everything looked strange but peaceful. There was an old temple near the cliff, carved into the rocks, covered in moss. Viria walked slowly toward it. Jackson followed. Inside the temple, the walls were filled with symbols. Glowing lines moved like veins across the stone, and in the center there was a stone circle, like a seat, or maybe a throne. Viria touched it. The moment her hand made contact, the entire temple lit up. Energy flowed across the floor and up the walls. A soft hum filled the air. Jackson stepped back. What is this? Viria looked at him, eyes wide. I don't know, but it feels warm. Then a voice came. Not from speakers, not from outside. It came from the air itself. You have returned, child of the true blood. Jackson pulled out his blaster, though it was useless here. A figure appeared in the air, made of pure light, shaped like a tall, robed being. Who are you? Viria asked. I am the guardian of the ancient line, the being replied. Your blood is not broken. It is awakened. Viria gasped. They told me I was infertile. A lie, the being said. Your body carries the next evolution of royal power. They feared it. They buried it. Jackson stared in shock. Then why tell her she was broken? He asked. The being turned toward him. Because if she bore a child with a human, the line would change forever. The balance of power would shift. Viria stepped back, trembling. You mean, I was hidden. Not because I was weak, but because I was too strong. Yes, said the voice. And now, they will come for you, to erase what they fear. Suddenly, the light vanished. Jackson and Viria stood in silence. Outside the temple, clouds were forming. Something was coming. We need to go, Jackson said. Now. They ran back to the ship, but as they reached the ramp, Viria stopped. "Jackson," she said, her voice low. "What if they kill us?" He turned to her. "Then we fight. Even if it's the Royal Army. Even then." He took her hand. They stepped into the ship. But as the engines roared to life, a signal was already sent across the galaxy. The princess is not lost. She is reborn. And the royal family. They were furious. Escaped through the burning moons. The dark zone was no longer silent. As Jackson and Varia prepared their ship for takeoff, an alarm echoed inside the cockpit. Not a sound, but a sharp red flash. Someone had entered the zone. Someone was close. Jackson checked the radar. 3 red dots were coming fast. "We're not alone anymore," he said, eyes narrowing. Varia gripped the side of her chair. "The Royal Scouts." Jackson nodded. "Or worse. Bounty hunters." He pulled a lever, and the engines growled. The ship rose above the black sand, leaving behind the glowing trees and the Temple of Light. But as they entered orbit, the stars around them turned red. "They're blocking the way out," Jackson said. "They want to trap us in the moons." Varia looked out the window. The 3 moons of the system burned like dying suns. They were dangerous. Their surfaces were covered with firestorms, gas clouds, and crashing rocks. "Can we fly through them?" she asked. Jackson smirked. "We'll find out." He tilted the ship toward the first burning moon, Velthera. It glowed orange and red, with massive lightning strikes across its surface. The heat was enough to fry any normal engine. "Hold on," Jackson shouted. As they entered the storm, the ship shook violently. Metal groaned. Alarms screamed. Varia closed her eyes, whispering something in her old royal tongue. A prayer. A memory. "We're gonna make it," Jackson said, gripping the controls. Behind them, a royal fighter entered the storm too. But within seconds, it was hit by lightning. The ship exploded in a burst of red fire. "One down," Jackson muttered. They flew through a narrow path of wind and flame. It felt like the moon itself wanted to eat them. When they came out the other side, the ship was smoking, but still alive. "Moon 1. Done," Jackson said. But Moon 2 was worse. This one, called Sarnak, was made of floating stone rings and wild magnetic fields. It messed with all electronics. Jackson had to fly manually. "Keep an eye on our left," he said to Varia. "If anything moves, tell me." As they flew, sharp rocks smashed together near them. Magnetic pulses pushed the ship in wild directions. One of the back wings got clipped, causing the ship to spin. Varia screamed, but Jackson leveled them out just in time. A second enemy ship was behind them now, sleeker, faster, and controlled by an elite guard. Its weapons locked on. Jackson dove downward into the clouds, then spun between 2 stone rings. The enemy followed. "Varia," Jackson said suddenly, "take the side controls. When I say now, press the red button." "What does it do?" "Just trust me." The enemy ship closed in. Jackson waited. Then, now. Varia pressed the red button. A panel opened at the bottom of their ship, and a small pod dropped out, releasing hundreds of shiny metal spheres. They floated in space, then activated. Tiny mines. The enemy ship flew right through them. Boom. A blinding flash lit the moon's rings. The royal ship disappeared in fire and smoke. "Moon 2, done," Jackson said, breathing hard. But Moon 3 was different. Moon 3, Norvex, was quiet. Too quiet. "I don't like this," Varia said. Jackson agreed. "Me neither." They flew low, scanning for movement. The moon was covered in black glass, sharp hills, strange blue lights. Suddenly, the ship's systems began to blink. "We're being jammed," Jackson said. Then he saw it, floating in the air. A massive ship, royal black, shaped like a serpent. No lights, no sound. "It's the Queen's ship," Varia whispered. "The Void Servant." Jackson's eyes widened. "They sent that after us." The serpent ship opened its wings, giant panels stretching into space. A beam of blue light struck Jackson's ship. Systems shut down. They started falling. "Jackson," Viria cried. "Don't worry," he said. "I've got one trick left." He reached into a hidden panel and pulled out a small crystal, glowing with the same light from the temple. "What is that?" Viria asked. "Something your ancestors left behind," he said. "Time to see if it works." He pressed the crystal into the ship's power core. A hum started. Then a burst of white light. The ship powered up again. Stronger, faster. The serpent ship tried to block them, but Jackson pushed full speed forward. The engines roared. They shot straight through the black hills, under the serpent's belly, and out the other side. "Moon 3, complete," Jackson said, laughing. They escaped the burning moons. But something was wrong. Viria looked at her hand. It was glowing. Faint, but real. "Jackson," she whispered, "something's happening to me." He turned. Her skin shimmered with energy, and her eyes. They were no longer royal blue. They were turning gold, the color of ancient kings. "You're changing," Jackson said softly. "Or maybe," she said, "I'm becoming what I was always meant to be." Behind them, the serpent ship turned away. But the queen had seen everything. And now, she was furious. The hidden truth about her bloodline. Inside the ship, there was silence. Viria stared at her hands. They still glowed faintly, like light was trapped beneath her skin. The color moved. Gold, white, and silver, flowing like liquid fire through her veins. "It won't stop," she whispered. Jackson reached forward and gently touched her palm. It was warm, but not burning. "It's not hurting you," he said, "but it's doing something, changing you." Viria nodded slowly, fear and wonder mixed in her eyes. "I can feel something inside me waking up. It's like I've been asleep my whole life. And now, I'm not." Jackson watched her carefully. This was no ordinary glow. This was something ancient. They flew for hours through deep space, keeping low, staying hidden between meteor fields and forgotten satellites. They didn't speak much. There was too much to think about, too much to fear. Finally, they landed on an abandoned human outpost floating near a dead star. The station was half broken, quiet, and dark, but it had oxygen, and more importantly, it had records. Old ones. Jackson had heard about this place long ago. He once met a scavenger who claimed that this station stored data from the first human-alien alliances, long before the wars, before the royal systems took control of the galaxy. "Stay close," he told Viria. They entered the station. Walls were cracked. Lights flickered. Broken screens and wires hung like spider webs. "It smells like rust," Viria said, covering her nose. "Yeah," Jackson said, "but sometimes truth lives in dirty places." They reached the main control room. Jackson powered up an old console using his ship's battery. A soft hum began. The screen flickered. Then an ancient voice spoke. "Welcome to the archives of the Interspecies Unity Council. Access level required." Jackson placed his hand on the scanner. Nothing. Viria stepped forward. She didn't even touch it. The moment she came close, the scanner glowed gold. "Access granted," the voice said. "Royal blood detected." Jackson's eyes widened. "You didn't even try." Viria's voice trembled. "I didn't mean to. It just happened." The console began playing holograms. Images of aliens, humans, and strange beings filled the air. One recording began. A female alien with golden skin stood in front of a crowd. "Our future depends on the fusion of blood," she said. "Our royal line cannot survive alone. It must evolve." A second voice spoke, this one a male, firm and fearful. "You're playing with fire. If a child is born of human and royal blood, it could carry powers beyond control. No throne could hold them." The first voice replied calmly, Then perhaps the throne must fall. The video ended. Viria stepped back. What does this mean? Jackson looked stunned. It means your bloodline was never supposed to stay pure. It was always meant to mix, to grow. But someone changed that. Another file opened. It was marked confidential, forbidden history. They watched in silence. It showed a younger Queen Loravira standing with alien scientists. They held a baby, glowing with gold light. This one is too powerful, one scientist said. We must hide her nature, if she learns what she is. The Queen interrupted. Then she will destroy everything I've built. The scientist hesitated. What should we do? Mark her as broken. The Queen said coldly. Make the world forget her. Jackson's heart pounded. They were talking about you. Viria stood frozen, her breath shallow. She lied to the whole galaxy, even to me. The screen faded. The truth hung heavy in the air. Viria, the infertile princess, had never been broken. Her bloodline had been upgraded, designed by ancient royals to bridge species and unite empires. But her mother, Queen Loravira, feared that future, feared losing control, so she buried her daughter's power with lies. Suddenly, a loud beeping echoed from Jackson's wrist device. Someone's coming, he said. Royal signal. Not far. Viria didn't move. She looked straight ahead. Jackson, she said softly, if they catch me, they'll never let me live. They'll cage me, or kill me. He took her hands in his. They won't catch you, he said. Not now. Not ever. They ran back to the ship, hearts racing. As the engine started, Viria felt something shift in her mind, like a door had opened. She closed her eyes, and suddenly she could see everything. The paths in space, the heat of the coming ship, the weak points in its shield. Fly to the left, she said quickly. Jackson obeyed. Now tilt 43 degrees. Shoot the lower panel. He did exactly that. The blast hit the enemy ship's weak spot. A perfect shot. The royal ship spun, lost control, and drifted into a small moon nearby. Jackson looked at her, breathless. How? Did you know that? Viria touched her temple. I don't know. It just came to me. He nodded slowly. You're not just royalty anymore, Viria. She looked at him. What am I? Jackson smiled. You're the future. Far away, back in the royal palace, Queen Loravira watched the crash from her throne. Her face was pale. Her hands shook slightly. She knows, she whispered. Shall we activate the Shadow Project? Her commander asked. The Queen closed her eyes. Yes, if we can't control her. We erase her. War for one womb. The royal broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Screens lit up in crowded markets, silent libraries, and noisy battle stations. A single message blinked across the stars. Princess Viria is alive and has betrayed the crown. People gasped. Most believed she was dead. Others remembered her as the broken one. Now, they watched in silence as the Queen's voice followed. She has run away with a human criminal. We believe she has been altered. For the safety of the throne, she must return. But deep in a hidden asteroid base, Viria and Jackson already knew what was coming. They're calling you a traitor, Jackson said, his voice tight with anger. Viria stood by the window, watching two stars spin in the distance. No, she whispered. They're calling me dangerous, because they know the truth is more powerful than the crown. She turned slowly and placed his hand on her belly. Jackson froze. Viria. She nodded. It happened after the temple. After the burning moons, I felt something new inside me. A spark. I'm not alone anymore. Jackson stepped back in disbelief. His face softened. You're pregnant. Yes. There was silence between them. And they will do anything to stop it, Viria added, because the child growing inside me is not just human, and not just alien. It's something more. Jackson pulled her into his arms. Then we protect it. With everything. 3 days later, an emergency court was called in the Galactic Alliance Chamber, the largest political building in the known universe. Hundreds of alien leaders, humans, robots, and ancient beings arrived to witness the trial of the princess. Viria and Jackson entered the hall in silence. Gasps filled the chamber. Her skin still glowed faintly. Her presence shook even the oldest beings. Her steps were calm, but every move echoed like thunder. At the center of the court stood Queen Loravira. "You ran," the queen said coldly. "I woke up," Viria replied. "You broke tradition," the queen snapped. "I broke free," Viria said. The judge, an ancient stone-like alien named Carnex, raised one hand. "You both will speak," he said. "But know this, if war is declared in this court, it will not be words that settle it." The queen pointed at Viria. "She was born to carry royal children. When her body failed, we accepted it. But now she says she is pregnant. I demand proof." Viria stepped forward and placed her hand on a glowing orb. A gentle hum filled the room. Then 2 heartbeats echoed, hers and the baby's. The entire court fell silent. "What kind of child is this?" one alien leader asked, voice shaking. Viria looked up. "A child born of peace, born of truth, born of 2 worlds that were never meant to mix." Queen Loravira stood up, furious. "This child is illegal. It threatens every royal law. It cannot be allowed to live." Jackson stepped forward now, his voice strong. "You're afraid of something you can't control. But fear won't stop what's already begun." The court buzzed with voices. Some agreed with the queen. Others were curious. A few were afraid. But deep down, many knew this moment would change everything. The Judge Carnex stood again. "Do you seek to destroy the unborn here?" he asked the queen. "I seek to destroy the lie," she answered. "This is not an hair. It is an infection." Viria's hands balled into fists. "You called me broken," she said softly. "But I was never broken. I was buried. You feared my power. And now that I carry the future in my womb, you fear it even more." The queen shouted, "I fear nothing." "Then why do you send assassins in the night?" Viria asked. "Why do you hide history? Why did you erase my real birth record?" The room went quiet. Queen Loravira's mouth twitched. For the first time, she looked shaken. "Because," the queen whispered, "you were never supposed to survive." Jackson drew his blade, slowly, not to attack, but to show he would fight if needed. The judge raised both hands. "Enough," he said. "This is no longer a trial. This is a war of truths." He turned to the council. "How many of you support the child's right to live?" Slowly, one by one, hands began to rise. Not all, but enough. The queen's eyes burned with rage. "Traitors," she hissed. "You will regret this." The judge looked at her. "Your Majesty, you may step down." "Never," she said. And with a single motion, she pressed a small device on her wrist. The ceiling cracked open. Black armored soldiers dropped into the court, weapons drawn. "Get the princess," a voice yelled. Chaos erupted. Jackson grabbed Viria's hand and pulled her behind a shield. Blasts flew across the chamber. Some council guards tried to fight back. Others just ran. But amid the fire, Viria stood tall, eyes glowing gold. She stepped forward, her voice louder than all the noise. "Stop." Everyone froze. A wave of golden energy burst from her body. Calm, but powerful. Weapons dropped. Soldiers fell to their knees. Even the queen stepped back. Viria's voice was like wind through mountains. "No more hiding. No more lies. This is the last time I run." She turned to the court. "You asked who I am. I'll tell you now. I am Viria of the royal blood. I am carrier of the child of 2 worlds. I am the future queen not by crown, but by choice. Jackson stood behind her, proud. And as the room watched in silence, someone whispered the words that would soon become legend. A war began over her womb, but peace may be born from it. The child the galaxy feared. After the battle in the galactic court, everything changed. News of Princess Varia's pregnancy spread faster than light. People whispered in every corner of every planet, not just about her, but about the unborn child growing inside her. They called it many names. The forbidden hair, the hybrid flame, the child of prophecy, the end of the throne. No one knew what it looked like. No one had seen it. But somehow, they feared it more than war itself. Varia and Jackson were hiding again, this time on a quiet moon called HFY, a place of forests and silver skies. The people there were kind and simple. They didn't care about royal blood. They cared about food, peace, and family. For the first time in weeks, Varia smiled. She helped the moon folk bake bread. She sat with children. At night, she sang soft songs in her old tongue, holding her growing belly. Jackson worked in the fields, laughing with the farmers. But deep down, he stayed alert, always watching the skies. Then, one evening, something strange happened. Varia was sitting under a tree when a small child walked up to her. The girl couldn't speak. She was born without a voice. Everyone knew that. But when she sat near Varia, the girl looked at her belly and whispered something. Light inside. The others gasped. How did she speak? One woman cried. Varia stared at the child, stunned. What did you say? The girl just smiled and placed her small hand on Varia's stomach. In that moment, the air shimmered. Birds went silent. Leaves stopped moving. Even the stars above seemed to blink. Jackson rushed over. What happened? Varia's voice shook. Jackson, the baby, it just did something. She looked around. And the world listened. Far away, in secret royal chambers, Queen Loravira watched a recording of that very moment. It's already awakening, she said through clenched teeth. This child will tear apart the old order. What should we do? Her advisor asked. The court will not support another attack. Too many eyes are watching. The queen stood silently for a long time. Then she turned to a dark mirror and whispered, Then we don't send soldiers. We send the shadows. Back on HFY, life seemed peaceful again. But Varia couldn't sleep. The baby moved more now, not like other children, but with purpose. She felt it push at her thoughts. Sometimes she heard things, or saw images that didn't come from her own mind. One night she saw a vision. A ruined palace. Fire. Screaming. Her child standing alone, glowing so brightly that even war machines backed away in fear. She woke up in sweat. Jackson, she whispered, we can't stay here. What did you see? Not what. Who? Our child. And the fear it causes. Jackson nodded. Then we leave tonight. They packed quickly and quietly, but as they reached their ship, they felt it. A strange presence. Jackson turned. Nothing. But the air felt wrong. Too quiet, too cold. Suddenly, shadows moved. Creatures without faces, silent, black as oil, sliding across the ground like smoke. Varia froze. Those aren't soldiers. Jackson drew his blade. No. They're worse. The shadow beings attacked without sound. Jackson fought with skill and fire. Varia shielded herself, calling on the strange power growing inside her. Then, something unexpected happened. A blast of golden energy erupted from her body, knocking all the shadows back. But it wasn't her doing. It was the baby. Jackson saw it too. Her stomach glowed, just for a second. Every shadow screamed, then melted away into mist. When the fight was over, Varia dropped to her knees. Jackson, she whispered, holding her belly. What's happening to our child? He knelt beside her. Something no one's ever seen. It's protecting itself, she said. It knows. Jackson looked into her eyes. Viria, the child may not be just part of the future. It might be the future. Soon, word of the Shadow's defeat reached the outer systems. Old enemies began to question their loyalties. Royal guards started to leave their posts. Even scholars in the high towers whispered, "What kind of baby can destroy shadows that served the throne for centuries?" On a planet called Uran 3, a rebel leader stood before her followers. "We once feared the royals," she said, "but now, maybe we follow a new light." On a distant asteroid base, a human general spoke to his council. "The child is half human. That makes it ours too." Small fires of rebellion lit up across the stars. And still, Viria's child kept growing. Each night brought more dreams, more power, more signs. The stars themselves seemed to shift, as if preparing for something big. And then, one quiet morning, Viria stood at the edge of a cliff, holding her stomach. She whispered to her unborn child, "They fear you. They fear what you will become. But you are not here to destroy. You are here to heal." Behind her, Jackson stood guard, but even he could feel it. The galaxy was holding its breath, because soon, the child would be born. Rise of the forbidden bloodline. The sky cracked open. Across the stars, people looked up, not at warships, not at weapons, but at light. Soft, golden light, like dawn breaking across the galaxy. It came from a single moon, a forgotten place, and from one woman. Princess Viria was in labor. Jackson held her hand tightly inside the small shelter they had built in the forest of Eshra. Their ship sat nearby, silent. Power was shut down. Communication lines were blocked. Nothing could interrupt this moment. Outside, the people of the moon waited in quiet prayer. They had no doctors, no high science, just belief. Inside, Viria screamed, not from pain, but from the sheer force of energy moving through her. Her body glowed. Her breath came in sharp waves. Her hair lifted from her shoulders, as if touched by wind from another world. Jackson wiped sweat from her forehead. "You're doing great," he whispered. Viria gritted her teeth. "It's not just me." She wasn't wrong. The walls of the shelter began to pulse, not shake, but breathe. The air shimmered. Time itself slowed. And then, silence. Not stillness, not emptiness. The kind of silence that comes before something eternal begins. A final cry. And the child was born. Jackson stared in awe. The baby didn't cry, didn't scream. She opened her golden eyes and smiled. Viria held her close, tears rolling down her cheeks. "She's perfect," Jackson whispered, voice trembling. But the moment they touched foreheads, a wave of light burst from the shelter, blinding and warm. It swept across the moon, then into the sky, then across the stars. In the royal palace, Queen Loravira collapsed to her knees. "It's done," she whispered. "The child is alive." "Shall we attack?" a commander asked. "No," she said quietly. "It's too late. The people will never follow me now." They felt her. On the battlefield moons, rebel soldiers dropped their weapons, not from fear, but from peace. Some cried. Some laughed. Some simply knelt and looked up at the sky, as if they finally saw hope for the first time. Inside the galactic court, old judges received a transmission. Just a soft heartbeat, echoing in the background of a golden flame. They stood as one. "The throne is no longer hers," one said. "The bloodline has risen," another whispered. "A new era has begun." Back on Eshra, Jackson and Viria stood at the edge of a cliff, the child in her arms. The sun was rising. "What do we name her?" Jackson asked. Viria looked at the baby, who now had little strands of glowing hair and golden fingertips. "Something simple," she said. "Something strong." "Lyra." Jackson smiled. "Lyra. Daughter of stars," Viria added. "Born of truth." As they watched the sunrise, a ship landed quietly behind them. But no soldiers stepped out. Instead, Queen Loravira herself walked toward them, her long robes dragging in the dirt. Jackson moved protectively in front of Viria. But the queen raised her hands, empty. "I came alone," she said. Viria looked at her mother with a face full of strength. "You lost the right to stand before her," Viria said. The queen nodded slowly. "I know. But I had to see her. Once." She stepped forward, stopped a few feet away. The baby looked at the queen, and then slowly reached out a glowing hand. The queen began to cry. "She doesn't hate me." Viria's voice was cold but honest. "No, but she will never belong to your world." The queen nodded, and that's what makes her worthy. She turned, walked back to her ship, and disappeared. In the weeks that followed, something beautiful happened. The galaxy changed. Royal families surrendered old laws. New alliances were formed between humans and aliens, rebels and royals, scientists and priests. Peace didn't come all at once, but it started with a baby's heartbeat. And whenever someone tried to bring more again, they remembered what happened on Eshra, how shadows fell, how soldiers froze, how truth shined through a child's smile. Many years later, children across the stars would ask their parents the same question. Is it true? Did a human and a royal really fall in love? Yes, the parents would answer. And was their child really born glowing? Yes, they'd say again. And her name was Lyra, the forbidden child who made peace possible. How did she do it? The children would ask. And the answer was always the same. She was born of love, and the galaxy listened.